left to right. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? What's going on? It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. On tap for today, we are going to do a mock draft. Mostly the Eagles' first to the fourth round draft picks. Who are our targets? Let's get into it. Joining us today is Tom. Follow him on Twitter at TomDS215. What's going on, Tom?
Hey, also you can check me out on A Pod Has No Name if you're into the fantasy genre. I feel like there's a lot of crossover between people who lock in for 4 straight nights of combine action and fantasy books. It's kind of like the D&D or the Lord of the Rings of the NFL world. So yeah, I'm excited to break it down. I love the draft. It's one of my favorite times of the year, and I'm ready to get this thing rolling.
All right, so we are going to go through the first to the fourth round. The Eagles have 10 picks this year. The NFL Draft Combine is just getting started. Really starts on Thursday. They're getting all their measurements done today. Let's lead off with Tom. Tom, what is your target for the 21st pick in the draft, man?
Okay, so broadly, I'm going to say the best receiver on the board. Okay, I don't really care whether it's a speed guy, whether it's a slot guy. Well, I would prefer a speed guy, but I'm not totally committed to the speed guy. I can go any way. I think they need to completely redo this receiving core. I think Alshon's gone. Once you're playing Big Bob Davis in 3 of your last most important games of the year, I think it's time to kind of rework the system there. So I think you and I both, we were talking about this before the podcast. Henry Ruggs is the dream scenario. But considering he might run like a 1.5 40 on Thursday night or Friday night, I'm not sure exactly he'll last to 21. So I got some kind of alternate guys that I like as well. So 2 guys that I kind of jump out to me are, first is Brandon Ayuk, receiver from Arizona State, 5'11", 205 pounds. He has an 80-inch wingspan, which is 2 inches longer than the tallest receiver in the draft, Colin Johnson, who's 6'5".
Wow.
So massive catch radius, which I think is useful for Carson, because Carson can be a little bit inaccurate at times. He can wow us at times, but at other times he can be a little bit accurate and a little bit sloppy with his throws. And he's the type of guy who can make it up for him. He's really he's similar to Shenault, where he's a guy who's special with the ball in his hands after the catch, and he needs to improve a little bit as a route runner. But pretty productive, 65 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns last year. And he's kind of a guy who's just learning to play the receiver position. I believe he switched from a cornerback initially. So Ayuk's one guy that I like. I think he's going to run pretty well. And then the guy that I really, really like is Justin Jefferson, 6'1", out of LSU. Mm-hmm. Absolute monstrous year with our man Joey Burrow. Yeah, 15 catches, 18 touchdowns. If you watch the national championship, you know who this man is. Or if you watch the semifinal, you know who this man is. Just all over the place. And to be as productive as he was, honestly, across the field from the Biletnikoff winner, Jamar Chase, who won the best receiver in the country award, that Biletnikoff, shows you a lot. And I know it's Burrow. It's the number 1 quarterback. He's going to make his guys look good. But Jefferson just seems like the safe and the comfortable choice, and sometimes it's good to be safe and comfortable.
Love those picks. My number 1 target, of course, is Henry Ruggs III. This is a guy that I go back to Matisse Thybulle with last year's NBA draft. When I saw the tape on Matisse, it was love at first sight. When I saw the film on Henry Ruggs III, same fucking thing, man. It was just the guy just wowed me. My jaw was dropped. At every play, every touchdown he made, his catch radius, his just everything about Henry Ruggs was mind-blowing. It's not going to happen, like you said. So I'm going with my man, Jalen Reagor. This is a 5'10", 5'11" wide receiver out of TCU. So we miss out on Ruggs, but we get a burner. And I think a guy that can stretch the field is going to do so much for not only Carson Wentz, but the entire Eagles offense. You brought up Alshon. All signs point to him. He's gone. Who knows how much you can count on Deshaun Jackson moving forward? 8 games tops? So Jalen Reagor is like probably the perfect guy to have mentored under Deshaun Jackson. This is a guy that has amazing straight line speed. He's a good route runner. He's a guy that is just going to allow Carson Wentz to throw the deep ball. The Eagles were in the bottom of the league last year in big plays, 25-yard passes or more. That needs to come back to Philadelphia. The big play needs to return, and it's got to be Jalen. Is he worth the 21st pick? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the thing. You have teams like the Saints, the Bills, all these teams that need wide receivers right fucking behind the Eagles. It needs to happen. You can't risk missing out on this guy. You can't have another Dalvin Cook situation where maybe you trade back hoping that, this guy, Jalen Reagor, is going to fall in your lap. Not me, man. Not this year. It's too much of a need. Give me Jalen Reagor. Yeah,
I mean, let's look at the last few years. And I've heard people talk about this. I think it's a really good point where, in an historic running back class, you wait, and you take Donnell Pumphrey, XFL superstar Donnell Pumphrey. Last year, an historic edge rusher class, how many? You wait. You take Sharif Miller, who didn't even say a single snap last season. So I think this is the type of year. It's such an obvious need that, and you have your pick of the litter there at 21. You really have that second tier of receiver. There's 5-6 different guys. It's like, what flavor of ice cream do you like? Do you like mint chocolate chip? Do you like Rocky Road? Whatever you're feeling, your guy's going to be there, and I'd be comfortable with any of those guys. Reagor being one of them. And to that point, he's one of my favorites as well. And just look at, I was recently watching the All or Nothing, the Eagles, video documentary from Amazon, and just that first game, just the impact that Deshaun Jackson had on the offense. I mean, you forget they were down to the Redskins, and then just 2 monster D-Jack touchdowns. He's got everybody on the sideline. He's got Lane Johnson saying, what do you say? Look at that little dickhead run. That type of guy can change your offense and can change your building. And I really like that Reagor pick. And Ruggs, obviously.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ruggs is 1A. I like Henry Ruggs so much, but it's not going to happen. I need to wake up from this dream because did you see Mel Kiper's mock draft? His most recent one had Henry Ruggs falling to the Eagles at 21. And I think they took T. Higgins over Henry Ruggs. I would die. I don't know about you, man, if that happened. But in that scenario, a lot of shit could happen there, man.
Yeah, I saw on the Ringer, Danny Kelly, they have a really, really cool interactive draft guide, but he did, not to be pumping other people's websites, but you should check out the Pain and Lines' draft coverage first, and then you can maybe hop over to the Ringer. But he had Jalen Reagor going to the Eagles at 21, and then Ruggs going at 28 to Green Bay.
Wow, that's really interesting. Reagor's a guy to watch at this combine. So is Henry Ruggs. There's a lot of rumors that Henry Ruggs is going to beat Chris Johnson's was a 4.32, 4.33 40 time record. 4.24. Jesus. So who knows what happens? Reagor and Henry Ruggs, their stock is going to be going up, man. These guys are going to crush the combine. Let's move on to round 2. Lead it off, man. What's your main target for round 2?
Okay, so knowing our Eagles, we know there's one thing they value pretty much more than, if not at the highest level in the league, probably more than any other team in the league, and that's dominating the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Love it.
So I have 2 different guys here, one on offense, one on defense. So offense, Matt Hennessy, center from Temple.
Yeah, baby.
Local Temple Al. So from what I read, I'm not so much an evaluator. I'm more like an aggregator of information. I just go to all these different websites and all these different sources and collect all this information and really learn about these players. So Hennessy, apparently his thing, it's toughness. He's one of the players who got a single-digit number in practice at Temple, which if you know Temple football, you know that's an incredibly important thing and a special honor. He's a technician. He's apparently incredibly smart, great football IQ. He's a guy who's got an interest outside of football. He's great in the classroom. He's a technician, like I said. He's fast. He's got great feet. What he's really only lacking in is kind of power. But that really reminds me of our current center right now, Jason Kelsey, who's the smallest center or one of the smallest guys on the line, but can get out into space and kind of create plays and create space that way. And I think who better to learn from and to play next to for a year or two before Kelsey retires here than Kelsey. So Hennessy's a guy that I definitely have circled as a round 2 guy for us.
Love it.
And then the other guy, I know you love that as a Temple Owl fan. I always try to throw in one to excite the Temple Owlites. And he doesn't have to change his locker either. He can keep his locker at Lincoln Financial Field.
They just signed a contract with the Link, so it's going nowhere.
That's right. He can sleep over. He can watch the Temple games on Saturday and sleep over and play on Sundays. So the other guy that I like is Marlon Davidson, who's the interior defensive lineman. He actually played edge at Auburn, so he has some pass rushing juice. He had 3.5 sacks sophomore year, 3.5 sacks last year or the year before that, or his junior year, and then 7.5 last year as a senior. This guy's just a big, bad, powerful man. He's got pass rushing juice, is what the Eagles need. And I just love those edge guys who can flip inside, like we've seen with Michael Bennett, the Super Bowl year, like we've seen with BG for the last 10 years. Those types of guys, and just I think putting someone of that high caliber talent, a D tackle, or whether it's him or anyone else, next to Fletcher Cox is gonna elevate this defense. And the more pressure you can put on the quarterback, the less your secondary matters. And with a lot of turnover, probably in the secondary this offseason, that might be something that they need to reinforce.
I love it, man. Great pick with Matt Hennessy, man. That's my boy. I loved watching him play. That guy is a leader. He's just a blue collar, hard nosed worker. Oh man, that would be an excellent pick. I think the second round might be a little too high for Matt Hennessy.
Okay.
I would be very happy about that pick. My top target for the second round is Trevon Diggs. He's a cornerback. He's 6'2". He's an elite athlete. He's one of the biggest upside picks in the NFL draft. When I think of biggest team need for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's wide receiver 1A and cornerback 1B. The Eagles need to pretty much reload at cornerback. You look at free agency, Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, all these guys are major question marks.
Get him out.
Goodbye. I'm ready to move on. I think you are too. But man, this is a guy that has the athleticism. He would be the most athletic cornerback on the team the second he steps on the field. He's fantastic in zone and press coverage. He can play at the line of scrimmage. We saw Jim Schwartz really hesitate to play his cornerbacks physical and out at the line, and really rely on, like you said, rushing 4 at the quarterback. Having a guy that can play man coverage, that is just something Jim Schwartz didn't really have last year. So Trevon Diggs is my guy, man. I think he's a physical corner. He's got excellent length. I feel like Mel Kiper right now. Todd. But yeah, the Eagles have to come out of this draft with a high-end, top talent cornerback in this draft. He has the size of Rasul Douglas, but he also has that deep speed that Rasul Douglas lacks. He can play outside. Man, it's just unlike Jalen Mills. This is a guy that has recovery speed. He just checks off all the boxes for me. I like Trevon Diggs in the second round.
Yeah, me as well. Another guy that I like and fits the Jim Schwartz mold is Jeff Gladney.
Yeah,
who's just a guy who can get up in the line and just terrorize receivers, which works for me. Okay. Anybody else you got in the second? Or you want to hop on to the third now?
Let's go to the third. I'll lead off, man. I'm going to lead off. Number 3 for the third round pick for the Eagles. My target is I'm going to stay on that center thing you just got there with Matt Hennessy. So I'm going to go with Cesar Ruiz. He's a center from Michigan. He's 6'4", 319 pounds. This guy is probably going to be a high riser once the combine starts and all that kind of stuff. He skipped his senior year. He's entering the draft, but he started 3 years for Michigan. This is a guy that is powerful, big, but can also move. He's very mobile. He's also very versatile. And when I look at what the Eagles value most on that 54-man roster is versatility. This is a guy that is going to be just kind of mentored under Jason Kelsey, but can really play anywhere in that interior offensive line. I love his feet. I love his mobility. I love his versatility. Cesar Ruiz, Michigan from center. Who you got in front of?
Yeah, and the thing about just about Michigan players in general, because Donovan Peoples-Jones, like I see his name a lot in the second and third round, and I just remember not being like particularly impressed with the Michigan receivers and the Michigan offense over the last few years as a Penn State fan. But you have to understand that their quarterback situation has been so bad the last 2 or 3 years that we might see Peoples-Jones have a stupid good combine and then and really be a special receiver once he gets a quarterback like a Carson Wentz. But so for the third round, I have another receiver. So I have them taking a receiver in the first and the third, and I have Denzel Mims from Baylor.
Nice.
Another Temple-esque connection with former, under the tutelage of Matt Rule here. But Mims is more of that burner that you kind of got in Rager in the first round, and I went with more of like a polished route runner and a guy who can get separation in other ways in Jefferson and Ayuk. So Mims is more of that pure burner. He's kind of a late bloomer, had a big week at the Senior Bowl. And then another guy that I also like in the third round is Troy Pry Jr., who after a few different corners got hurt or were medically ineligible for the Senior Bowl, he kind of stepped up and separated himself as the top senior corner. And it's another kind of physical guy who can track well and kind of seems like a Jim Schwartz kind of corner kind of guy.
Love it. Another target I have in the third round is Kayvon Wallace. He's a safety from Clemson, 5'11", 205 pounds. He had 2 interceptions last year, but according to Pro Football Focus, he had 89.7 coverage grade this past season. Wow. So this is the biggest thing that screams out about Kayvon Wallace, and I'm going back to my Ruiz pick, is versatility. This is a guy that can not only play safety and be mentored under Malcolm Jenkins, fingers crossed they extend him pretty soon. But
me as well.
But this is a guy that, he can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can play slot cornerback. Because I don't know about you, man, but Avonte Maddox was 1 step forward, 2 steps back all year last year. Avonte hasn't earned a thing yet. I still think he has potential in the slot, but that's what it is. It's potential. Kayvon Wallace, like Malcolm Jenkins, has a ton of football IQ. The one negative about Kayvon Wallace is he's dropped a lot of interceptions. He led the nation in 8 dropped interceptions last year. So that's not good. But overall, he's a really good tackler. He's 205 pounds, so he's got a frame. I just like what he can bring. I love that versatility, a smart, instinctual player that could kind of be a ball hawk. So Kayvon Wallace, any other third rounders, or do you want to move on to the fourth round?
Now we'll move on to the fourth. The only 2 things. One, he can be the new Nigel Bradham if he wants to just drop interceptions all day. We needed a guy like that in our defense. And then the other thing, the last time the Eagles had a safety from Clemson, I think it worked out pretty well. He's probably the most beloved Philadelphia athlete of my generation. Him and Allen Iverson go back and forth with Weapon X.
Yes, sir. So, what's your targets for the fourth round, man?
Yeah, so I only have 1 for the fourth round. I know you got a bunch here. I kind of front-loaded mine, and you back-loaded yours, which is fair. So I have Kenny Willekes, defensive end from Michigan State. So this is the kind of guy. He had 47.5 tackles for loss and 22 sacks over the last 3 seasons. Uber productive, high effort, high motor kind of guy, like a locker room leader. Not a guy who's got all the physical tools, like the Derek Barnett freak ankles that can bend, or the Kayvon Van Chason speed, or anything like this. He's kind of going to fall on the average in those measurements and in those drills, and we'll see that this weekend. But he's just a guy who wins. He's just physical, tough, and at worst, still can be a guy they bring in off the bench to do some work for them as a rotational guy. But I think he could be like a guy that I loved back in Eagles history was like a Trent Cole.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't a freak athletically, but just really, really worked hard and was a really productive and great Eagle.
You brought up the Axeman, or you brought up Brian Dawkins. I'm bringing back the Axeman. I'm going for Malik Harrison, linebacker from Ohio State. This guy's 6'3", 246 pounds. When you look at the Eagles, their linebacking core it's one of the most neglected positions in all of Philly sports, man. It's a joke. I go back. The last time the Eagles drafted a decent linebacker, you're going back to Jeremiah fucking Trotter, man. But this is a guy that had 73 total tackles, 16 and a half tackles for loss, 25 tackles for loss over the last 2 years. He had 3.5 sacks in 2019. He projects as a starting inside linebacker in the NFL. He's physical. He plays downhill. He knows how to plug gaps, get off, shed blocks. He's a really good tackler. The only thing that makes me worry about this pick is that he's very raw. This is a very raw linebacker prospect. He's not the best in coverage, which we know as a linebacker in today's NFL, you have to be able to cover. So he's going to need to be coached up there, but he can blitz the quarterback. He just checks off all the boxes here. Malik Jackson, linebacker, except for the coverage. But anyone else you want to talk about?
Well, so Malik Harrison, I will take anyone off of that Ohio State defense. They're all incredible. I'll take any corner. I'll take any linebacker. I'll take their entire defensive line. I watched them just destroy team after team in the Big Ten this year on the back of that defense, and just anyone from Ohio State, especially in the front seven, is a lock for me and a great pick. There's no one else I have in particular here. I know you kind of have a couple. Sure. You have another couple guys you wanted to get into? I
do. I've got a couple more. My next one is Devin Duvernay from Texas. He's a wide receiver. Oh, yeah. Speed, and more speed, man. We've been talking about this the entire podcast, but Jalen Reagor, Henry Ruggs III. Devin Duvernay is one of the fastest wide receivers in this draft class. He's got probably the best straight line speed in the entire draft. This is a guy who clocked in at 21 miles an hour during the Senior Bowl, which was second behind Henry Ruggs III, who was at 24 miles an hour. Duvernay is really, really fast, man. He projects, though, as a slot wide receiver, not necessarily an outside wide receiver. That's really where he really turned some heads and thrived this past year. With Texas, he played the slot primarily. He's not a very good route runner, but he needs to be coached up there. But this is a guy that's a bull, man. You see him routinely just put his helmet down and just run people over. He was a running back before going to high school. So he's just this giant, very strong 5'11" wide receiver that is very good at getting open. He needs to work on getting off the line of scrimmage better. His release isn't that good. He doesn't have the quickest feet, but straight line speed, man, he's versatile. You could work on him in the slot to start out. Could he be, an upgrade from Nelson Aguilar? I think he could. And then eventually move to outside once he gets a couple years in the league. But that's one target. Another target I have, I'm going quarterback, man. I know there's a lot of free agents out there to back up Carson Wentz, but how about a developmental quarterback? I'm going Jalen Hurts. Give me the quarterback from Oklahoma.
Okay. That's a good pick. Duvernay is interesting. So I heard that before the season, his counterpart, Colin Johnson, who's this enormous 6'5", he's a 5-star recruit, huge guy. He was supposed to be a top 15, top 10 pick. And all year, I forget exactly where I heard this, but basically all year, everyone's watching Texas. They're trying to scout Colin Johnson, and they're just on their notepads. They're checking, wait, who's that guy? Who's Duvernay? Who's Duvernay? And Duvernay kind of became the most productive and the best receiver for Texas this year. And I love those kind of guys. And like I said, any position as a receiver, slot, outside, gadget, I don't know, rebounder, like enormous red zone target. Bring them all in. Bring them all in. Let's refresh this whole entire thing. So I like that pick. And then quarterback, I like that too. I might go like a round or two later, though I am a little bit nervous after the Clayton Thorson debacle.
Oh, God,
who was among the worst preseason quarterbacks I've ever seen in my entire life.
The worst.
I think he's still on Dallas's practice squad, or he was at the end of the year.
He's probably in the NFL at this point.
Yeah.
Did he? I think he replaced Matt McGloin in that one game. No,
oh, really?
No. I'm just saying. Like, it's just who the hell knows that? Like you said, man, that guy was flat out terrible. It really comes down to wide receiver, man. We need playmakers. You need dynamic playmakers at wide receiver through this draft. Man, Duvernay could be that guy that you just throw a screen to and he's gone. You saw the Kansas City Chiefs do it the last 2 years. That's what we need, man. We need that Tyreek. We need to find that gem in this draft. Maybe Duvernay could be that guy. Who knows? Any final thoughts before we wrap it up, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many good receivers in this draft. You can take your receiver like all the way through their 5th round pick, and I think you're getting a guy who was in most years is like a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. You're getting him in the 5th round this year. The depth is incredible, but like we said, it's so important to take that shot early at a highly, highly talented receiver and not kind of rest on their laurels. So I like that we're both on the same page with, regardless of who's off the board, who's on the board, just take your number 1 receiver in round 1.
I made a recent Jalen Reagor video for our YouTube channel. Check it out. And one of the guys commented saying Henry Ruggs in the 1st and Jalen Reagor in the 2nd. And I just I was at work when I read the comment and I just completely geeked out. Could you imagine? That's pretty much my dream draft. Personally, I would love to have, 2 outside burners, boom, right there. That would be so fun. You
got two huge tight ends to play the middle of the field, and you got 2 guys to run in straight lines down the outside.
Woo! Oh man, I just geeked out there for a few seconds. So make sure you follow Tom on Twitter and his podcast, A Pod Has No Name. Anything else you want to plug about the Way of Kings or anything, man?
Not in particular. If you're a book guy, if you're a draft guy, if you're like a guy who's paying attention to the draft this early, if you're reading about the Senior Bowl, if you're reading about the Shrine Bowl, I know you're also a fantasy guy. You might not want to admit it to yourself. You might not want to admit it out loud, but hop on the Way of Kings train. We're having a blast, Shane and I, once a week, and we're building a nice little audience, and we're having a great time. And So join us over at A Pod Has No Name.
That's on Twitter at A Pod Has No Name, and follow Tom on Twitter at TomDS215. For Tom, for myself, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!